Well, hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Visible Workplace. We're going to be looking at some of the challenges of software and just how difficult it can be. I was given a warning around software, and even with the modern developments of AI assistance and no code, well, software still remains extremely difficult. But we are looking at a bigger picture, which is making work visible, and software just happens to be a particular type of work, but because of its specific challenges, its requirements around detail and getting feedback and course corrections, it really is worth looking at the experiences that I'm having as I build out software and then looking at the applicability to a larger issues that we've got in the modern world with work. My name is Tom Rolley, and you are listening to the Visible Workplace podcast. Why software? Well, that is a very good question. Ideally, if you do not need to do software, then you should not. It is quite challenging. And I have had several attempts so far. This is my fifth attempt at software. And you might say, gee, not very good at it. But I was warned. One of my good friends has been in the software game for some years. And he was like, you know what? If you get it on the second or third time, you will be doing exceptionally well. He's like, you're almost certain to fail the first 3 times. And I am suspecting that it might actually be a few more times after that because of the difficulty of it. And he was just like, hey, by the way, it's actually like you're going to fail the first 7 times, but I don't want to demoralize you completely. So I'll just say 2 to 3. But that was one warning. Also had another warning from another coach. He's like, if you are not highly successful, if you don't have large amounts of cash, if you don't have experience running large teams, then you should stay the heck away from software. And that was a very valid point. But there was something that has happened over the last couple of years in software that has potentially changed the game to a degree. And that is the advent of no code. No code basically means that somebody went in and said, hey, let's take these 20 lines of code and stick it on a button. And let's take this other 17 lines of code and stick that on another button, and we'll combine them all together. And this is the no code revolution. Obviously, we've also had AI coming in. There's AI software development. And this is essentially reducing the cost that it takes to build software. However, it is not solving the difficulties of software development. And by that, what do I mean? Well, as I'm developing my software, and I really had to make the decision to say, yes, for Magic Boards to work, we're going to need to have software. There's too many copying things that have to be done, too many logistical moving files to keep it organized. And if we have software, then all of that goes away. To have a chance of this working, then we're going to need software. And I'd already had 4 clients, which is not that many, but they all ran into the same problem, which was like, hey, there's too much copying and pasting here. And yet that is what is going on when we do things. And you might wonder how it is that people are not doing this all the time. Well, we have an advantage. We can learn. And we can go through and memorize. And by doing things over and over and over, they become learnt behaviors. However, we face difficulties in our current reality of distraction, of change, of forgetting, of doing things in the wrong order. And all of these lead to the problems that we've been discussing over the last several episodes of the podcast in terms of work having mistakes, work not getting done, work generally having a lot of difficulties, and that leads to less profit, more frustration, long hours, and generally a very unpleasant experience for people. And yet our world is not going to become less distracting. The social media, perhaps it might go away. And I was listening to another podcast, the All In podcast, where someone described eliminating the TikTok app from their phone and the marked experience that was. They were like, the algorithm on TikTok is so amazing that it's not the content, but it's rather the algorithm that really makes that app amazing. But it was consuming all of his time. It was basically an addiction, and so got rid of it. And we are bombarded with this between messaging apps and social media, let alone email, phone calls, Netflix. The ability for humans to stay focused is becoming more difficult, and the ability for us to track where we're up to becomes therefore more important. But coming back to this software experience, well, the reason it's so difficult is that there's a lot to track. There's the feedback, there's the bugs, there's possibilities that as it's getting used, more possibilities come in. Wouldn't it be great if it does this? Wouldn't it be great if it does that? Difficulties around features that got put in but don't work as expected, let alone communication as well. Hey, this needs to be changed. This needs to be changed. If that's all in a Slack channel and no one is pulling out the to-dos, then we're losing that data. And it's like, well, why didn't that get done? Well, it never made it out of the Slack channel into the to-do list. And so that is one of many challenges with software. Is it amazing? Yeah, it's amazing. And several days, just wake up and go, oh, this is a horrendous idea. And yet, what I'm using, Magic Boards, is working really well. To track feedback, it's brilliant. Comes in as a, hey, here's the feedback. And then the next step is to work out what happens to that feedback. Is it something that we've already got? We do. Okay, delete. Is it something that is an emergency? Okay, it needs to be upgraded to urgent and fixed as a bug. Is it something that's actually really important but not emergency and should go in ahead of everything else that's planned? Is this something that fits in the plan somewhere? Or is this something, hey, this is a great idea, but we just don't have the time, resources, or effort to implement this, but we still want to track it. We still want to have that as an idea that in 3, 6, 12 months, 24 months, there's like, you know what? This is going really well. We now can implement that idea. If I don't track it and it just falls into the ether, then hopefully it'll recover, hopefully it'll return, but it may not. So this tracking of the feedback, tracking of the production, all is way better if I can see what's going on. And Magic Boards does this really well. On the MVP right now, and it's successfully dragging and dropping these items for where do they fit. And this allows for organization. This allows for prioritization. This allows of building sprints. A sprint is a set of work that gets done and then it kind of finishes. It's like, hey, let's work on this, and then it finishes. And to prepare those sprints, so I'm actually like, okay, we're going to work on this particular part of the app. And then next sprint, we're going to work on that particular part of the app. And next sprint after that, we're going to work on that. And so instead of having a whole bunch of mismatched ideas that need to be done, it's like, okay, let's keep it focused. Let's get it done, complete this part, and then we'll move on to the next. And the organization for that is challenging. And you could have it in a Trello board, but it's going to end up with a lot of columns. It's like, whoa, hang on, where are all these things? So the organization and prioritization is critical in software. And then making sure stuff gets done. That completion piece is so nice. It really is nice, because on a day where I'm frustrated or things aren't going right, it's like, hang on, have we done anything? And I look at the completed list and remember that 1 week ago, 2 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, none of these things were done. And they then become normal. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is all just normal. But in fact, going back 4 weeks ago, a whole bunch of features were not in at all. And so it helps remind myself that there has been significant progress when we're stuck on particular things. Right now, the progress bar is going in the wrong color direction. Instead of like what would be a relatively expected program, which would be like, hey, done is green on the left, and then working on is yellow in the middle, and not started is kind of gray at the end. It's all mixed up, and it's like at the moment it's showing green, then gray, then yellow. It's a little bit awkward. but that will get fixed. The team will get onto it and go, okay, great, we're going to fix this thing. And then I can move it down to the completed and look back and go, gee, that was done. And if I don't do that, then yes, I can have some kind of awareness that we are a lot further or have made progress. But with those completed items, it really allows me to go, yes, we are moving. Yes, we have done this. Yes, 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 this is worthwhile. And these challenges, though, are just not in software. Receiving feedback is also going to come into managing people. What feedback do I need to provide to my team? What feedback do they need to provide to me? What do I do with that? Does it get implemented? Certainly a reoccurring story is that people get told to do something and then nothing happens. Why not? Well, one could argue that they didn't have a methodology for checking and installing a new habit. Every time I do the payroll, I've got to tick this box. And every week it doesn't get done and I get reminded about it. Oh, that's right, check the text box. But it can't be, it's not there when I go through the instructions because we don't have any instructions and therefore I forget. And this repeating cycle where humans are not learning. But if we had these instructions and it's like, tick the box, done. Not only does it get done, I also get a dopamine hit and I physically do that action. And next time around, it's like, done, dopamine hit, physical action. Third week, done, physical action. And then it's habitual. And it's just like, great, done, 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 done. Little dopamine, sure. But without tracking the processes, that box doesn't get ticked and the behavior doesn't change. So all of these issues in software are very similar to ones that we face across the board in working. Why? Because we can or we can't see what's going on. Taking this feedback idea, I can see all of the feedback that's come in. And yes, there are specific programs that deal just with software feedback. And that's great. That's great. But if we take that idea across the board, then I'm suddenly going to need software for making my offers and software for planning my copy and software for building out my funnels and software for this and software for that. And suddenly I've got 15 different apps and it's like, where is everything again? So having a consistent design for how we do things is very powerful. And it's not to say that a business grows so much that Magic Boards is inadequate. And that definitely could be the case. If you have enough company records and enough pieces of data, you need to move to dedicated software. But beginning or even in smaller sized businesses, having it all designed the same way and having a consistent way of actually getting the work done means that we can progress faster and cleaner, get stuff done, as well as being able to provide the instructions for people who are just beginning. I was running through one of my beta testers and he's like, well, what are you thinking for this? Are you going to go medical? And I'm like, yeah, medical. Look, medical is a bit of a problem because often we're so bad at business that it's like they wouldn't even know what this stuff is, which was a bit of a judgment on my part, and I retract that. Look, a lot of medical practices are run really well. But he was like, you know what the banks do? Well, they're funding this stuff and they give more help to the businesses that they're funding. Have you considered partnering with them to say, hey, here's the instruction sets. Here's what happens to train your receptionists. Here's what happens to train your nurses. Here's what's happened to manage your reordering of supplies. Here's how to check that your cleaners are doing the right work. Here's how to run your autoclave. Here's how to do your iron infusions. Here's how to, and here's it all being checked off. It's a fairly powerful experience for a medical center to have all of the working documentation, not just for compliance, but to actually be used so that things don't get missed. Because in life, some businesses are dealing with things that make a difference. In real estate, if there's errors, it can cost millions of dollars. It's like, or time. No, maybe not, but errors can be expensive. Getting sued, let alone even just the emotional cost of messing stuff up. So the better we get at accurately executing on the work that needs to be done, it relieves stress. It means that I can be certain about what I've got to do. And as long as I'm competent in that, or I can be trained in that, then there's a degree of comfort around my work. I'm in a flow state. I'm like, hey, this work is doable and I know how to do it. I'm feeling good about it. As opposed to being thrown into jobs with little or no instructions or a one-day introduction to the work and then starting the next day and going, what am I meant to do again? Where's the instructions? Where's the how-to? Because it all seems so fine when somebody went through and guided me. But when I'm left to my own discovery, it's like, what am I doing? To come back to the software, we do beta testing at the moment. And I had 2 people get to a place where like, I'm stuck. And what was happening was they weren't able to get the template magic board into the library to run it. So if you have a library of magic boards that for stuff that needs to be done, you need to run them, make a copy of it. But because they couldn't get to that stage across, it was like, okay, this needs to be changed. This needs to be worked on. We've got a couple of immediate things that go in. I've got onboarding video. Hey, this is what this magic boards idea is about. And this is how you do it in the software. It's actually 3 videos. First one, what is a magic board? Number 2, what does the software do? And number 3, this is how you do it in the software. Go through that couple of minutes of videos and suddenly it's like, I get it. But also taking that feedback around why did they get stuck at that place? And then I was talking to my design team. I'm like, hey, what about if we put a little move button? Because it was possible in 2 ways to get it across the library, but they didn't see any of that. And so it's like, okay, how do we make it more obvious that we can move this board around from draft to library? Draft is I'm designing, I'm coming up with the idea of how this magic board's going to work. Moving it to library means that it's ready to be run, and then running it, I actually get to do the work. But if we can't get from draft to library, then we can't run it, and it's like, what is this? So these problems come up in software. And our ability to share them and to see them is critical. So that's why I went into software for this. Not particularly wanting to, given the double warnings from mentors and friends. But nonetheless, knowing that if we could do this, then it brings value to the world. It increases our ability to make information more shareable and more implementable quickly. Getting to that place where it's just like click a button and a magic board's installed. Click another button and it's ready to run. Click, click, I'm ready to go. And this is where we're heading. Is it possible right now? No. But within the next week or 2, that will be the reality. That it will be possible just to click an install button and a magic board will be installed. And then click another button, run, and a copy will be run and we can go do the work. You see, many people have worked out what to do in business. Many people have worked out what to do in life. Do this, do this, do this, and you will get that. And yes, there's a spiritual component of like, well, do nothing and everything is done, but perhaps they're hinting that I don't have to do so much. That the universe might be guiding all of this. And as we look back and go, wow, that was pretty cool. This software made a difference in the world. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. But making work visible, not only the results that we're after, but also the SOPs that get us there, may well be something that makes a big difference in the world. And hopefully as we continue on, or I continue on with the development of the Magic Board software, and the installables come, and we start to get even more feedback around, hey, I got stuck here. I got stuck here, that this thing evolves and improves and suddenly represents a really great way of getting stuff done in the world so that you can see what's being done. Your life becomes easier. You get time to think. You get time to spend with your family. And that is well worthwhile. All right, that's all I got for you. I got to go pick up my kids from the school, doing the school run today. Excited for that. Meeting my daughter at Sunday Sustainable Bakery, one of her favorite after-school little adventures, and then taking my son down for haircuts at the Eight Brothers down in Ballina. I hope you're having a great day. If you enjoyed the podcast, then please like, subscribe, and share it up. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The Visible Workplace to continue this journey into making work visible and the advantages of doing so. See you then. Thanks for joining us at The Visual Workplace. This is a notification that the information and ideas discussed here are general in nature and do not take into account your specific circumstances. You should seek specialist advice for any medical, financial, emotional, mental, or other difficulties that you are facing with appropriate specialists and professionals so that they can apply your specific circumstances and give you the required advice. Thank you for joining us, but this is also a notification that all information is indeed general in nature and not specific for your personal circumstances.